Okay. Let's see if everything's working. Alright. Hello. Okay, let's see if the actual... Because sometimes it starts and then it just randomly stops again. So, let's go to Hikari.
Did you, so do you just have like the Twitch stream muted basically? And
I'm basically, the way that I'm looking at the chat is through, like, I have it on my phone.
Oh,
So.
that's probably a good idea.
Okay, everyone, feel free to comment if there's any problems with the sound. Just say them now while I'm getting the music ready. Oh, it's playing Stay. This is a perfect dramatic intro to the stream. Oh, hello, Kathy. Okay. I think everything in the audio is working okay. So, let's go.
Let's go.
Alright. Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode of the Scarlett Squared Podcast. Today, we have an incredibly special guest. Let's, minasan, everyone, let's introduce ourselves. I will start first. I am Scarlett Lemieux, who is an artist who does stuff as a VTuber, but also uses my IRL as well. So I have two different personas, you could say. Alright, so, Fraser, will you introduce yourself?
I'm the other Scarlett, and I am a TikToker.
Yeah!
Yeah, so that's that.
Okay.
Great.
Would you like to introduce yourself, our special guest today?
Yes, my name is Keith Rankin. I am part of the group Death Dynamic Shroud. I'm a visual artist, and I also make music under the name Giant Claw by myself.
Alright! It is time to get started. Oh no, my chair is making squeaking noises, but we will... That's fine. Okay, everything is going to be okay. So...
And should we say that me and Scarlett know each other from the Death Dynamic Shroud Discord?
Yes, everyone here in the mixtape club, say hashtag New World in the chat right now. Because Kathy is in there.
Oh, okay, I'm looking at the chat now. Dr. Duct Tape, Kathy.
Duct tape. Let's go. Okay, so there have been some incredibly exciting new releases in the New World realm lately. One of them is Dark Life, which is the first thing that we are going to talk about, because, like, let's just get that out of the way, because now it won't be spoilers to talk about anymore. So,
Yeah, it was building up for, like, I've never seen an album have that long of a, like, build up before.
Yeah,
It was like a year or more. It was kind of stupid.
No, it was incredible, because all of those singles, like, they held up really well on their own as well. So I think it was, like, a good decision to have, like, the rollout of all of those singles individually too. That was very, very cool. And I except for the fact that I was only in the New World Mixtape Club for one of them, which was Fall for Me. But
Oh, really? That's when you joined?
yeah, I joined, like, right after Midnight Tangerine had come out.
How did you even hear about it? Or, like, how did you even hear about DDS?
DDS was through, I mean, this is going to sound like such a cliche answer, but it was, I think it was, like, the Pad Chennington video on I'll Try Living Like This. And, like, I had listened to that sound, and, like, I don't know, I had listened to other Vaporwave artists before. I was already starting to get into Vaporwave, but the stuff that I had listened to, like, I had a really weird introduction to Vaporwave, because my first introduction was, like, the really stuff that like kind of terrified people, like Robustone's public broadcasting service, like Sekai kara kaihou sare, all that kind of all that kind of stuff. And then
What did you just say? What did you just say there?
Sekai kara kaihou sare. That's like the Internet Club album that they made when they were like 15 or something, liberated from the world. Ora. So yeah, that was my introduction to vaporwave, and then I heard I'll Try Living Like This, and of course, I mean, there was definitely something different about that, and that was a turning point in vaporwave, where like even though I was already familiar with like the themes and like how like the really depressing themes about like the issues in the K-pop industry and stuff like that were implemented in there. I found that I don't know if this is like your intention, but there was definitely like some element of hope in it that I didn't see in those other ones, because there's always, the protagonist is always like reassuring herself it's gonna be fine, or you've got to keep that dream alive and stuff like that. So that was something that kept me going when I was in the midst of a hard time. So that's why DDS connected with me, and I think that's
beautiful.
I think that's how a lot of other people got into it, because there are so many people from all different walks of life that like that all different walks of this dark life that come to Death Dynamic Shroud to kind of feel as if there's I don't know, I guess a place that they belong, and they almost interpret each of the albums in a different way to like connect to their own struggles. And
I think there's definitely the artist intent, but when the thing that you make is, you know, publicly, I think the audience reaction and interpretation is like, you know, just as valid as like is the intent behind it. I know a lot of people have really like picked up with I'll Try Living Like This on the K-pop connection of just like the kind of toxicity of the K-pop industry, I guess, which I know you said that was something you picked up on, right?
Yeah, especially since like right before that I was definitely like that was like my K-pop obsession phase, and then I went to Death Dynamic Shroud and it's like cool. this is hitting hard, you know. And
I put out like one of my early Giant Claw records had a song called I Know I'm Like a Ghost, and that title was from this I think it was like a Korean celebrity who committed suicide, and I think that was like maybe in her suicide note or something. And that was my first exposure to like the kind of the dark side of the celebrity industry over there, kind of. So that aspect of it was always like pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, I have noticed that in a lot of not just Death Dynamic Shroud albums, but like also Giant Claw albums, there are people that kind of, as I said, project their own predictions onto it. Were there any like, because sometimes the members of Death Dynamic Shroud kind of keep that element of mystery so those people can project onto it. But were there any that like either were something that you like a new perspective on it that you had never thought about before that was interesting, or one where they like got it really surprisingly accurate even if you didn't really reveal what the purpose or the issue that it was discussing was?
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, like when we make the music, you know, like we're sitting in front of a computer, like sometimes we'll talk like later on, or just like, you know, have discussions about thematic stuff, but it's like when we're making music, like the focus is on just like the sounds, the arrangement, the like, you know, the musical aspects. Yeah. And so like a lot of the more like heady thematic stuff, it like when fans like talk about it, like how they interpreted the music, a lot of times it's like illuminating to me, or like almost reminding me that like, oh yeah, like I guess this is in the music, or like this is one reading. So like for I'll Try Living Like This, there's tons. Like people are making up a whole kind of bizarre narratives about.
Yeah, I have seen some of those before.
I'm trying to even think of one. It's just like, there's something where it's like the main character in it is like going through depression and then like finding some kind of salvation or something like that. I feel like that's a common
That's
theme
true.
that a lot of people say. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. On Dark Life, there was some like very specific stuff about like what it was about that you did reveal, and I remember Tech saying in the Discord that all of the members had very different opinions on what love is or what love meant to them, and I was wondering like. This is such like a deep question to ask at like the very beginning, but like what was your what did you bring what opinion did you bring about like love and what it was to that album?
Yeah, that was a bit easier to kind of like hone in on that theme, because like we did literally have a conversation about that subject like during our recording. I think it came up probably because like Tech was maybe saying that I'm gonna like misquote him here, but something along the lines of like love is like an illusion, or just like
Love is a social construct, right?
I honestly can't. I think maybe that I took the social construct route. Basically, that that like partnering serves a like really obviously useful biological function to like help the species continue.
True.
But that a lot of like especially in the West, there's just a lot of baggage around like what love is. Like there's so many aspects of it, like the whole like marriage industrial complex kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just like the idea of like what is romance, like what is being a good partner. I don't know, there's just a lot of like this crazy baggage that enters into when you like when you fall in love with somebody. And also the fact that we only have like kind of one word for all that like love is just like this word that kind of describes a whole array of more complex emotions and feelings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there are so many different types of love and so many things that like so many rules that society has tried to enforce on like what those kinds of love can be.
Yeah. And actually, when me and Tech were driving back home after one of the recording sessions, we kind of also had a conversation about it, and it was basically, I was just trying to articulate like what like the idea of love meant to me, I guess. And I used for an example like my sister or like my partner Ellen or my mom, and it was like I would literally I would like die for them, basically.
Right.
Or like if they are hurt or like emotionally injured or just like in a bad place, it's like I am in that place too. Not to the same degree, but it's like that kind of like feeling through proximity. Do you know what I mean? Like if they're hurt, I'm hurt. And that's like the closest I can come to articulating it.
Yeah, I definitely like that empathy and that connection that you have for those people. I totally understand that, and I have experienced that before as well.
Yeah, but there's not really many people in your life who really take up a slot like that. It's usually like a family member or so I think for it to be like a partner is like a great experience
Yeah, definitely.
for humans to have.
Yeah. And in terms of like the music and what you brought to that, which Dark Life track do you feel like has the most of like your creative vision? Which one did you take the helm on the most and like put the most of your Keith Rankin signature innovation into?
I guess Fade Persona was probably that was like majority of my track.
Oh yeah, Kathy just guessed it in the chat.
Yeah, even though I wouldn't, I mean that's probably not my favorite track on the album, but like, yeah, that was one that I like pretty much recorded on my own, like the initial stage, and then we kind of like tweaked together later, like more the detail stuff, and like the end of Rare Angel was like an old Giant Claw track.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah, it uses like the same Demi Lovato sample I've used like 20 times.
Oh right, you were talking about that.
Yeah, and then maybe like, I don't know, like the mid section of E102.
Oh my gosh. Of course.
Was kind of
yes. Just so much yes going on right now.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, I feel like we all had maybe like 2 or 3 kind of intensely like kind of solo moments on the album, but the majority of it was very collaborative.
Yeah, I like, because I have the kind of press to talk thing going on Discord, like the you didn't hear it, but like I was applauding to the chat 'cause it's like, oh yeah, all the most epic moments of the album, I made that.
There's a lot of over the top moments on the album.
Yeah, and that is like a kind of a big theme of like Dust Dynamic Shroud and stuff, especially that like I've talked to Tech about this a lot, is the fact that I don't know how to explain it, but there are a lot of songs where like there are some songs where like being more introspective about it and having like more of an intimate tone to it works, but for some feelings, especially like these big feelings that you're trying to convey, some moments are just so heartbreaking that they need to be like to be fully expressed sonically. They kind of have to be very maximalist because that's how it feels. So like, what is your like opinion on either like more minimalist versus maximalist music?
I mean, I think it's tough. It's in a way it's tougher to do something simply, to do something minimal and have it be really effective. So, in a way, like sometimes I really like hearing that more in music. But there's also a part of me, you know, obviously that loves like progressive music and kind of twisted, complex music.
Right.
I don't know. Do you have a preference? What do you think?
I mean, I guess there's so many musical styles out there, and it's like there's a time and a place for everything. And as I said, sometimes that fits. There's some people that are like really against that sort of theatrical element to it, and I'm like, no, but it sometimes it just needs that.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, definitely, it's less like cool, I guess, to kind of have a lot of bombast and like. Sorry, I live near a train track and it's going off. I don't know if you can hear that.
No, I can't, probably because it's like I can't hear you. I'm playing Dark Life right now.
Oh, okay. But yeah, like it's harder to. I don't know, like, well, I mean, there's a lot of different parameters for like what cool is, but like, yeah, it's like you kind of toe the line when you're doing kind of over the top, epic music, I guess. It's kind of easier to slip into like schlock, I guess you'd say. I'm not sure the right word for it.
I think you all, especially because there's 3 of you on albums like Dark Life, where it's very much that maximalist stuff, you do it in a way that like really balances it out, and it makes it makes theatrical and cinematic sounding music cool. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess J-pop is a good example of like completely often over the top music that still like
Yeah.
has a sort of like aura of like like a cool perception. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, especially with a lot of like there's a lot of very uh, gothic sort of sounding rock anime openings that almost like toe the line towards metal sometimes, and like they're still very cool.
Absolutely, yeah. Like the baby metal stuff.
Oh heck yeah. Absolute
Is that,
classic choice. I'm
is
actually
that like is that your like that's your area, right? It's like the whole J-pop stuff.
Yeah, that's where I mean the reason that I started learning Japanese in general was because I had listened like I had known about some of the lyrics in Japanese music and like J-pop and stuff, and I don't know, I don't know how to explain it, but there were like a lot of metaphors and stuff in it that I felt were really beautiful, and I was like, I want to be able to convey those things and so I was like, I'm gonna learn what they're saying so I can like fully understand what this stuff means.
When did you learn Japanese?
I started learning it in like the 5th grade, so I've spent
Oh
like
wow. Okay.
yeah, I've spent a lot of my life learning Japanese, and thankfully I've gotten a lot of opportunities from it, like being a graphic designer for the Japan Society of Northern California and cool stuff
Holy
like that.
crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, you learned when your mind was when your mind was still like putty or something. Like
Yeah.
you were still young enough that you could just like absorb another language.
Yeah, trust me, I saw some stuff during that time in my life, especially like being in both the anime community and the J-pop community in like 5th grade. That's like, I don't know if I should have been seeing at that point.
Yeah, I mean there's yeah. The
Yeah.
internet is it's like the older I get, the more I sympathize with parents who are like, God, like my child is just gonna see like snuff on the internet. Like,
Oh no.
like when I was that age, like it was the same for me. It's like, you know, I was actually reading this thing about how kids are basically just like traumatized from all the crap, like really violent stuff and just whatever they're seeing online. But it's
Oh,
like
wow.
there's I don't know there's no really way to like regulate it without
Yeah.
like turning into like going too far essentially. It's like you
Yeah.
have to keep it open.
I mean, the things like violence and stuff like that and references to violent things, I I don't know, we were talking about this in the Discord too, funny enough, that there was like like I don't condone any of like the stuff that's like in the, what do they call it, to like not say it, the off-brand anime market, but like but in terms of just general anime, like shonen anime and like battle stuff, I mean, it's what people say about like, oh, it's good fighting evil. So I guess if it has that sort of, if violence is used to like convey a good message, I don't know where like you toe the line on that. I suppose it all depends on intentions and all that, like very individual stuff for each
Yeah, I
author
mean,
and
like,
creator.
like in the like 20 years ago or whatever, there was a whole like violence in video games is gonna like rot people's brains or turn people into like school shooters and stuff.
No.
But it's like, no, I just think like our like the United States like
In general, yeah.
social system is more like what's gonna turn people
We
into
live
school
in a
shooters.
society. Yeah, I think one example, I guess, of that, and like when it's depending on what the artist's intention is that one example of when I was in 5th grade and like I was watching, I forgot what it was. There's this rhythm game. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's Project Diva, which is like a Vocaloid rhythm game.
Oh no, I've never seen that.
Yeah, so it's a bunch of songs that were made using Vocaloid, and they all have like different music videos that a lot of times tell stories that like convey the meanings of the song that are like playing in the background as you play your little rhythm game. And
Yeah.
so I was watching the music video of that for a song called Tokyo Teddy Bear, and that song has like a lot of references of I'm just gonna say trigger warning on this, like stuff like, you know, self-harming and suicidal thoughts and stuff, very very personal stuff. But when my parents walked in, it was like all they saw was like the imagery of that, and they didn't know what the lyrics meant, so they were immediately like, you're watching violent stuff on the on the phone. But it was like, actually it kind of, it did help me to like understand some things more and kind of mature a bit faster at that age. So there was some sort of benefits to that and giving me a wider
Yeah.
understanding of those things and what they meant.
No, I mean, I still remember being, yeah, like when I was a teenager, like I would rent anime movies from like a like a brick and mortar video store, and my mom, like literally just thought they were, you know, like Disney cartoons or something.
Those Japanese cartoons.
Yeah. Um, but it was like, yeah, I mean, it was like 90s like crazy anime, like Vampire Hunter D and like Ninja Scroll and like all the classic 90s anime kind of.
Yeah.
But in like Sailor Moon and stuff too. But yeah, I mean, it didn't. I don't. It's like if you can place yourself back in that time. I don't think being exposed to that material at a young age like messed me up. Maybe it did. I don't know. Maybe it did like ruin my life, but like I don't think I'm a violent person now, basically.
Yeah, I don't think you're too bad right now. Yeah, and going back to like the music thing and how you're how you were influenced in music that we were like talking about with Dark Life. There are so many like, I don't know how to describe it, but there are like some very like signature Keith elements that like you listen to a track and you're like, oh, this is a track that Keith Rankin has made. It's like either like the use of very, you know, beautiful cinematic string elements, or the way that you turn vocals into an instrument, especially like every time on Discord that we ask you, you're like, we're like, oh my gosh, this vocal sounds so cool, and you're like, oh, I want to make it sound like a like insert instrument here, like usually a guitar or something like that. And like, oh my gosh, wait, that makes so much sense. And we're like, you're so cool. So when was like the first, because you used to not make music that, you know, obviously you used to not make music that sounded like that. What was the first instance that you feel you kind of discovered your musical identity, or like, I want this to be what my music sounds like. I want to implement this stuff. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's honestly like it changes like as an artist. This applies for a lot of people. Like in your mind, you know what you're capable of, and it's usually a lot more than the things that either people know you for, or even that you're just like making public, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's like it's something I've thought about a lot. It's a certain point you kind of decide on what identity you want to like represent yourself.
Your persona, as it were.
Yeah.
I've made that joke twice in the same stream, darn it.
No, I mean, yeah, it's accurate. Like this, it's exactly what the title "Faith and Persona" is kind of about. It's just like at a certain point, you're like, you kind of choose your identity, and like you choose who you are, kind of, and you kind of just run with it. And it's like that choice like dictates a lot of actions. Also, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy or something. But I really believe that people, you know, have many identities inside themselves, and most of like many different styles, many different kind of music. Like when I think about my own music, I feel like I'm still almost finding what like who I am, if that makes sense. And kind of like there's certain things I guess that have become like signatures for me, but it's kind of like an endless search, just like trying to like who am I? Like what does my life translate into music? Like where can it go? How can I change it? I don't know. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. Also, I still have no idea who the heck I am.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I look at a lot of like, I guess rock bands and stuff, and or like when you're making music that is like very much in a genre, it's easier to kind of maybe hone in on like a style because you're already like working with this extreme foundation. But with like electronic music, it's a little more open, unless you're, I guess there's a million pretty firm electronic genres, but the way I prefer to work is a bit more open, and like I'll use some genre hallmarks or like some like genre tropes to start with sometimes, but
Yeah.
it's a lot more about like exploring like outside of those things. That's kind of what interests me.
Yeah, I feel like so many, not just like DDS releases, but also Giant Claw releases are like they are a mix of like so many different genres and fuse them together in a way that like sounds really cohesive, and like the way that you manipulate those samples like to fit in with, I don't know, it's I think people have said this before, but it's almost as if DDS is its own genre. Like people have tried to categorize it so many times as like a part of, I guess just because you're in the vaporwave community, they're like, oh, this is vaporwave, but like when you listen to Dark Life, you're like, is it really? You know?
Yeah, I mean that's what happened. Yeah, that's kind of the result. I don't know. For you, like when you're making music, are you thinking about that too? Like, are you thinking of a genre first, kind of, and then trying to like work inside of that?
I think it kind of depends on the song, and I think it's more like I want it to sound like I want to take elements of like take inspiration or of melody or instruments from like another song rather than like from another genre altogether, if that makes sense.
Like, are you talking about like kind of referencing another song directly, or like sampling it?
It's more like, I don't know, what I did with songs like Hack Up was like I looked at the let me see if I can find what I'm talking about so I can like link it in the chat here.
Yeah.
Hold on. Because there's this artist who started out like doing who a lot of the this is a random fun fact, but a lot of like the J-pop, like the big artists in J-pop now started by being Vocaloid producers, and one of those, I will post it, the Spotify account is Uki3, and when
like
I was
when you say Vocaloid producers, like, you mean like they were producing the music and using the Vocaloid for the vocal melody?
Yeah, that's you. It's like it kind of like the community has its own terminology for those sort of things. So when they say Vocaloid producers, that means like people who produce music and then have the Vocaloids sing it, basically. So producers that like, yeah, that that.
But yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And so like that person was who I took inspiration from for like the how the melody of Hack Up was, and kind of how I wanted like certain little, I don't know, elements of the sound to be like what instruments I would use, and like it's not a thing of like directly taking from them, but it's like I want it to have a vibe more than a genre. I don't know.
Yeah, that
like
makes
the
total
vibe
sense.
of something else. Yeah.
Like when you record, are you like do you have a MIDI keyboard, or like how are you making them, like literally making the music?
Yeah, it depends on the like what program I'm using, because as you know, I was doing that thing where I was like attempting to kind of like challenge myself to use GarageBand Mobile until it completely imploded upon itself and it deleted the remix, but that's besides the point. So
Not work? Does the app not work anymore?
well, it's just like it got to the point where like I had used too much space on it. Was how it was, and that just like crashed. So, but what I did on that is like the same thing that I do for like stuff on other programs like Ableton. I've used like the trial version of FL Studio before, and it is mostly keyboard stuff. Of course, when you're on like MIDI keyboard stuff, and of course when you're on GarageBand Mobile, it's not a MIDI keyboard. It's just like a piano roll that you like press on with your fingers on the phone itself. I didn't like plug my MIDI thing into that, but yes, I do have a little Akai professional mini keyboard over here. My webcam is showing my VTuber right now, so you can't see it, but yeah, that's what I use.
That's pretty much, I mean, what you described is kind of the same, is my kind of the same method I use. Is like going between essentially notating in the piano roll and just like, you know, playing the MIDI keyboard, and then like scrolling through a million different sounds to try to find the sound I want, basically.
Oh, Kathy has a note about like the genre thing that we were talking about. That I remember seeing some YouTube review of I'll Try Living Like This. They called the album an example of the future vision subgenre and starter of the new world trend. Oh, that's a conversation that I think you've had like multiple times about like the various subgenres of like the specific community that you're in and how specific they get. I haven't even heard of future vision. I've heard of utopian virtual, but not.
I have not heard of future vision.
Wait, what does that mean? Someone in the chat, please tell me what that means.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah,
I think calling things futuristic is kind of like a bit of a trap.
True.
Because, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but it's like especially for Death Dynamic Shroud, like we are using the present sounds, modern sounds. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
DDS is the moment.
Yeah, I take back what I said though. Sometimes I just start talking and then like realize halfway through that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Mood. Very much a mood. And with the samples that you use, I noticed that they're taken from like in Death Dynamic Shroud in particular, there are some like samples from TV shows or stuff that are like radio dramas where it's like, where would you even find this? And with Giant Claw and like a lot of also your work with DDS, there's a lot of like old R&B samples in there that are utilized, and I was wondering, in terms of, are you one of those artists that like does kind of sample hunting, if that makes sense? Like, do you discover are most of your samples like from new stuff that you discover, or is it more like old stuff that you remember being like hits from other times in your life?
I mean, I still am like an active music fan, a music admirer, if you will. So it's mostly like stuff that I actually love. Like a lot of the R&B stuff that I would sample is just, you know, it's just songs that I like. There's that whole era of like late 90s, early 2000s, really like all the 2000s R&B, like kind of pop radio R&B. Like I just have like such a soft spot for, because at the time I was working at a Chinese restaurant as a delivery driver, and I would just like listen to pop radio for like, you know, 5 hours a shift, and it just a lot of those like I just noticed like oh the R&B pop is like the best, like that's the that's the cream of the crop. Um,
Keith just had the job and here's broken promises, promises, and he's like, oh my gosh, that's it.
yeah, I will say that like Katy Perry is an example of an artist that like that I like her music more like chopped and screwed essentially. It's like I'm not like a huge Katy Perry fan. Just her outline, but like yeah, when you slow it down, it does or chop up the vocal. I am more of a fan of that music.
Yeah, I guess it for me it definitely like depends on the era of Katy Perry because I think I'm kind of like biased by liking the song Over Again so much because I already actually liked Never Really Over. So there's a little bit of bias in that. In terms of like the kind of I don't know, is there like specific genres in music that how do I explain this? Because is there anything in music that like I know you talked about stuff that's your favorite, but are there like specific elements of music that you hear that will like kind of give you some sort of reaction of like disliking it? Like are there very specific things where it's like it's not in the execution of it, but just like in general that sound, anybody using that sound is not something that you like? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I love this line of thought, by the way, of like I actually used to like write music reviews, but
yeah.
And I was just way too neurotic about it. Like every one of my reviews near the end started to become just like what is my taste? What is taste in general? Like am I in any position to like
what is this dark life?
to like have yeah, like what am I in any position to like having to like try and put my taste onto other people or whatever. So I think like around that time I started to think about like what like where does taste come from? And it's obviously just your life's accumulation of media and sounds and art and it's like it's a million points on the trajectory of your life in relation to what you experience. Like that makes your taste. And so there's like a few levels to it though. Like when you hear something, the like initial reaction is just like your body's like gut reaction, like your first line of defense, like your taste's first line of defense.
Fight or flight response, but for music.
Yeah. And so that like that first reaction to whatever, to in this case we'll say music, like when you hear something and you're like this sucks, like that reaction it's like your life, your culture, your family, like your class, the place you come from, it's like it's all that baggage talking.
Yeah.
And so like when you say I hate this, it's like it's basically a reflection of like where you are, like where you've come from, your place inside of the culture, I guess. Which that's I'm not saying that's like something to be avoided. Like we all are in our own place. Like we all have our taste. But you can go like for the purposes, I guess, of reviewing or just like thinking about music, you can kind of take a step beyond that, which is like trying to hear the music. I guess hear the music in its own context. Like instead of placing your context onto the music, you hear the music and you kind of try to extrapolate. Like where is this coming from? Like what context is this in? Where in the culture is this music from? Like is it like what's it trying to do? Is it succeeding with what it's trying to do? Like Is it coming from a certain genre's history? Like, is it a part of that history? Is it furthering that history? So they're just like, yeah, I'm obviously too neurotic about it, but like,
No, not at all.
when I hear music, like that's kind of the fun of it, is to kind of hear music and try to place the music in the context of your own experience, but then after that try to like see where the music is coming from, and then like seeing if you can like fit it inside of your experience and kind of expand your repertoire of taste. But I guess I will add on top of that, a lot of times my personal distaste in music comes from when I hear something and I feel like the people making the music are people that I would like really not get along with. So like a lot of like bar rock, like
Yeah.
like I always cite this old like 2000s indie like bar rock band, The Hold Steady, is like my least favorite music.
I see.
Yeah, or just like super like broed out EDM sometimes.
Oh my gosh. The cringe. Like, see, there it is. That's the gut reaction.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, yeah, I have that strongly too, with certain things. But yeah, I would say it's usually when I pick up that like, the people behind the music I just wouldn't like personally. That's when it's like really turns me off, I guess.
Yeah, there are definitely some artists where, like, even if I like the music, if I don't, like, not necessarily whether or not I would get along with them, but if it's just, like, a worldview that I think is, hurting others or insulting to others, I'm obviously not gonna support that person. So that's kind of
yeah. I mean, like the extreme version that I get is like the whole fascist like the. I don't know, it's probably not around anymore, or yeah, it probably is, but like the whole fascist like vaporwave scene, like
oh
that's
yeah,
like
the thing that I right.
that's like
Yeah.
the clearest example of that. I don't know. We actually, like with DDS, we talked about this too a little bit, about if not liking the person who made the music ruins the actual music for you.
Yeah, it's that separating the art from the artist thing that so many people talk about. It's like sometimes you can get behind it, and other times it's like, it's a little too far.
Yeah, I think for me, like if it's a current artist, like if it's someone who's still alive, it's like if I listen, it's harder for me to get over knowing that I don't like the person, I guess.
Yeah.
But if it's like Richard Wagner or something, or just like someone who's been dead for 200 years,
Right.
it doesn't, it doesn't factor in. Like I can listen to the music and like hear it on a different plane than if it's like a person that is alive and working now, I guess.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. In terms of like my experience of things that I just find, like, not even things that I think are from a critical standpoint bad, but just something that's difficult for me to stomach or something like that in terms of gut reaction. There was this weird interaction that I had on the Discord where I was like talking to people, and I'm like, there are some ways in which like people, there like times in which people mostly like play the saxophone in a certain way that like I am not able to listen to. It's so hard to explain, but like nobody knew nobody understood what I meant by that, and like it's like when it's like when you hear a baby crying in a store and then you empathize like with like you feel bad for the baby and it makes you feel bad and you're like, oh, just stop crying, I don't want to be sad right now, because like and there are some ways in which like instruments are manipulated that make them sound a little like too human for me. I think that's why I like DDS, is because they make voices into instruments and not like instruments sound like voices. I don't know.
Wait, so you're saying
Like-
so you're saying basically when a saxophone sounds like a crying baby,
It's
it's
so hard to explain because
it
it's like
turns you off.
there are like songs where like I don't know, it's the same reaction that I just have basically to like any harmonica playing as well, where it's like I'm just like it makes me, my gut reaction feel weird because like that sound gives me the same reaction as like a crying baby, and I don't know why it happens. And
Wait, so I'm trying to think of like, can you think of an example of like a saxophone song that makes you feel like that?
gosh, I don't know. There's just like a bunch of like songs in like, I don't know. There
Like,
was
is
this
it
weird.
is it in a
trend.
more like pop context?
There
Like,
was
where
this
it's like,
kind of, because there was this weird trend in like the 80s where people were like making the saxophone like sound very aggressive or like it was screaming or something like that.
okay,
And
I know
I'm
what you mean.
So yeah, that sort of stuff. It's like I understand that like there's so much like technical stuff that goes behind that, because I mean I don't play those instruments, but I play piano. It's like I understand how much technical skill would go into like manipulating an instrument in that manner, but it's like just something where I just have to step back and I'm like, okay, I can't take this in for some reason.
Basically, I'm imagining just like a kind of ripped dude with like
Yeah.
like big muscles, like playing the saxophone like in the rain is the
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so, oh my gosh, speaking of, like, the Katy Perry thing, I could just say in summary that hearing Last Friday Night as a child traumatized me.
Last Friday Night, I can't think of that song.
It's, like, I don't know, like, where the music video, like, the guy is playing the saxophone on the roof. Somebody in the chat will know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Oh,
I
wait. And
I think I'm with you on the harmonica though.
Yeah, I do not like that instrument. I'm sorry. It's weird. Like I mean, for some reason, like I don't know, it's me with like the whole J-pop thing again. The way it sounds in like anime soundtracks when they use it in like slice of life stuff, like that sounds fine to me, but like in any other context, it's like no.
There's actually, now that I'm thinking about, like, I don't like the kind of like Bob Dylan.
Oh,
harmonica.
yeah. Definitely.
But there's a lot of like Stevie Wonder songs where I really like. He's like a
Yeah.
virtuoso harmonica player.
Right, definitely. Like there's two different types of playing that, and that's like it's more of like either the melodic sense or just kind of like, I don't know, the feeling it out, I guess. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Oh, wait. Okay, some people are giving their opinions in chat. And Rose is talking about how in 2014 pop music had like a saxophone track drop in every song. That was bad.
Yeah, that was very true. Like, it would always like kind of, there was like a trend where there'd be this like build to like what a few years ago would have been like a really loud climax.
Yeah.
But then around like 2014, it would just like drop to like a single sub bass and like a flute playing like a
Yeah.
3-note melody.
Yeah, that's like I think it's called an anti-drop.
Okay.
Yeah, at least they called it that in the K-pop community, but that might just be because they're really critical of things and they're like, this is anti something. I don't know.
I'm all about the anti-drop then.
Oh,
As Dr. Duptake says, I hate that trend.
yeah, there are some examples people are saying. Jason Derulo. Problem by Ariana Grande. Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of that in that.
Are you a fan of Ariana Grande?
Again, it kind of it depends on the era, because I don't know, American pop music in general, just like the trends change so fast now, especially with, you know, the kids these days, the era that we're living in. So it really depends on like what version of that artist that you're talking about. Because like No Tears Left to Cry, God is a Woman, that stuff I really enjoy. But like there are some other ones where I'm like,
Yeah,
not as
same.
much.
That was kind of the No Tears Left to Cry is like an incredible song. That was kind of the point where I really like got on board with Ariana Grande, and hearing some of her like acapellas was crazy. Like it's like some of the harmonies and stuff she's doing are like just like out of control, and like when they're actually in the song, so a lot of it gets masked, but like when you're listening to her harmonies and stuff, like just the vocals alone in acapella form, it's like, yeah, this is really good. Like I really like particularly, yeah, that era you mentioned of Ariana Grande.
Yeah. In terms of like, so you talked about like hearing things a cappella. Is that like, I'm kind of wondering this because James said that oftentimes like he doesn't use like isolated a cappella versions of like stuff in his music, and because there was that whole discussion about Loving Is Easy and whether or not you took it from like a Hatsune Miku cover and isolated the vocals or something like that. Do you like isolate the vocals yourself like in a program, or is it just like for when you do those vocal chops, is that just like, do you just find it off of YouTube? Like how do you?
Yeah, like a lot of the Ariana stuff was just YouTube. I just ripped it from YouTube. If you search like Ariana Grande acapella, yeah, I don't. Maybe it's some of it's not even up anymore, but yeah, most of the stuff I got was just from random YouTube rips, basically.
Yeah.
But there is now there are programs now that can do like pretty clean separation of instrument and vocal to make like stems.
And
I think like using AI and stuff, but I haven't like I've barely like started playing with that, but I feel like it's gonna get really crazy pretty soon.
Yeah, I've done like some like remixes and mashups of stuff in the past, most of which were deleted because now I find them kind of cringy. But that's beside the point. I use like there are just websites online like for free that like you just insert like an audio file and it will like extract the vocals from it, and depending on like how well it's mixed into the track or like how much it stands out in the track, it can be pretty effective actually.
Yeah, for sure. I've used a few of those online ones, but I just found they sucked too much of the frequency range out. Like it didn't quite sound clear enough.
Yeah.
But it's getting way better. Like, so yeah, I wouldn't even be surprised if now there was like free ones that were really good.
Yeah. Enrail has a question. How do you process and pitch your vocal chops? I've noticed some crazy vibrato and pitch glides and was wondering if you did all that manually.
Yeah, I've probably said this before on the Discord or elsewhere, but usually like, so I'll find an acapella, I'll bring it into Ableton or Logic, and then kind of almost do a lot of like really quick cuts to it, like trying to essentially break down the vocal performance into like either syllables or just like small clips, basically. And then I'll just kind of I'll try to piece them together into a new melody or like a new vocal part. And then what Nathan's talking about, yeah, I'll go in Ableton. It's like really easy to automate pitch. So I'll do a lot of like vocal, like manual glides and stuff, and a lot of just changing one or two notes to fit in the key that I'm working in, and just manually editing, really like micro editing that way. Yeah, it can be really time consuming, but it's the only way I've found to like achieve that the effect I want, which I'm sure you've noticed, like what the sound is.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy how like, um, I mean, you have such a very different method than like a lot of other like sample based artists in that way, like just taking the very smallest syllable of it and like being able to manipulate it even to like different words and phrases, you know, like the kind of like the interpretations that we were saying like
Yeah.
before that we were discussing like earlier, that like they like even if they have like specific interpretation to certain people, they kind of have a universal meaning because in terms of like them just being chopped up from random syllables, they really mean nothing at all, you know.
It is it's so funny how like new like vocal lines do start to emerge. Like I was working on this one song recently, and like sudden like I was like chopping vocals, and suddenly like the line what was it? I think it was like "I Wanna Love Me" or something came up,
Oh
and I was
wow.
like that's perfect. Like,
Wait, which song was this?
it's something I've been working on recently. It's not nothing released.
Oh, I see.
But I mean, kind of on top of that, I've also wondered, or I thought a lot about like working as a producer for like a pop singer or something. And number one, I would love to do that. But number two, I also wonder like what would be lost um, if I kind of eliminated that like vocal chop style.
Yeah, I mean, there are songs in DDS where like I mean, it's even with stuff like Missing Person, like it's there's so many parts where it's literally just singing, but it's so effective. So like it really depends, like I guess. And
Yeah, that's true.
I think you
That
all
is great.
are very capable of working with anything and turning it into something great. There are so many times in the Discord where like a bunch of people are asking you to like randomly sample stuff, like and it's like, do you really? I mean, uh,
You mean like sending YouTube clips and stuff?
yeah. Have there? I know Tech has actually gotten inspiration from the Shroudies for some of his tracks, like the idea of the Purple Heart Club and like the title Midnight Tangerine, stuff like that was like from stuff that he received from the Shroudies. Have you ever like taken inspiration from anything that they've said, or anything that I don't know, like that sample stuff that they seem to request all the time?
I mean, I've definitely saved a few. Wait, Nathan's in the chat here. I feel like Nathan. One time I was like, I wasn't posting in general. I was just kind of looking in there, and I think he was dropping some like Mario. Some Mario game music. Maybe you can recall this. But I was just like saving all those tracks, and yeah, some other people. I've saved like a few YouTube links that people have dropped in there, being like, "You gotta sample this." But I haven't gone as far as Tech and like naming an album after
Right.
a Shroudy suggestion.
It's just like, oh, you never know what happens when you're in the DDS chord. You can just say you're eating a midnight tangerine, and all of a sudden, boom, you're responsible for a whole new album.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. We were talking a little before, like we started here, about how it's somewhat, I think, somewhat unique that like we're as active in the, like that the artist, us as the artists, are like pretty active in the Discord. Do you think like do you think that's like why a lot of people are want to be there, or like I always like kind of wonder if it's like good or bad. Like, is it turning off the people that were like too much in there?
What? No, not at all. I think that's, as you said, I think that's one of the reasons that people come to the Discord so much, because like you have so much insight on like what the music means, or like a lot of the like the process of making that music, that is very interesting and very informative for like people who are aspiring to make more music, and you know, more interesting music, like, so yeah.
I mean, it's definitely reaching the point where it's like there's just too many people to kind of
hello,
keep up
Fang.
with.
Fang just joined. Hello, Fang.
Oh, I need to start looking at the chat here.
And Rose, James told me that during the first Dark Life sessions, you guys were thinking Enrail is gonna love this part.
Oh shit! I wonder what part that was.
I'm trying to like think of Enrail's music here and like think of that.
I feel like
The
Nathan
after
was
third heaven thing or something, or the fade, like the middle of fade persona, that sort of thing. He has some songs that play into like that very new world chopping of stuff. I've noticed.
It may have been just like the main part in Judgment Bolt, actually. Could have
Oh
been.
heck yeah!
I feel like Nathan didn't. I feel like he didn't really like the album that much when he first heard it.
Well,
I'm just gonna throw that out there.
wait. Oh, Enrail said the part he was referring to in terms of like Enrail's gonna love this part was the middle part of Judgment Bolt and all of Perfect Angel, and you guys were right. So, that's not what I expected actually. The middle part of Judgment Bolt, so like the acid part. The acid. Is that one of the songs where you call it the acid part, or am I mistaken on that?
No, that was the acid part. I think that's how James was referring to the original version of Neon Memories, which had me and like Tech, Neon Memories, like me and Tech did a lot of work on that track, like remotely, like when we were back at home actually, and then we sent it to James, and it was like pretty fully formed by that point, and he kind of made the middle section just devolve into like like a pit of acid like just like a like audio noise basically, and we ended up not using that version, but there is a version that is like the acid version that I think was referring to that track.
We'll go on the deluxe Dark Life or something.
Yeah,
someday.
we released the acid cut. Yeah.
Oh yeah, everyone was saying release the acid cut.
But we eventually so then like when we were working on Fade Persona, I asked James, I was like, can you just like do what you did on Neon Memories and like do the same thing in the middle of Fade Persona? So like that song got like a mini version of the acid treatment.
Oh my gosh. And Rose says I need Dark Life Keith's version. Well, Dark Life is already kind of Keith's version.
Yeah,
that'd
be funny. Just like stretches of silence that the parts that I didn't work on.
Was there stuff like from Dark Life that like you suggested that like you're kind of like disappointed didn't get in, or was that more like kind of the weird acid James suggestions?
Trying to think. Well, for a long time we were debating if the album should be like shorter and more of like a tight kind of like poppier album, I guess, or maybe just like more of like a banger centric album, I guess you could say.
Oh, okay.
So like I kept going back and forth on which of those versions I preferred, like the kind of the 40-minute version or the like hour and a half version, and we kind of ended up in between that.
Yeah, there's definitely a nice balance in the track list, and with stuff like I Just Wanted to Know Love, there's stuff that's like even kind of callbacks to your old style, so there's a good mix of like all different kinds of cool things and techniques and genres in there.
But there wasn't anything like specifically like with that James acid thing where it was like an idea I really wanted that was just like, no, we can't put this on.
Oh gosh, now they're asking for the release of KGDOE. Yes, the insider knowledge of the DDS chord is plentiful.
It's crazy how the OG version of Mess is the same song but without the best parts. And really, Nathan's just trying to brown nose.
No. I mean, I definitely like that version, but like the like that middle part that you were talking about just elevated it so much. That's like one of my favorite parts of music ever, not gonna lie. It is the
That's
music ever.
Scarlett, what is your? Do you have like a favorite? Excluding, let's say this, excluding the things I've worked on. What's your favorite DDS album?
Oh, okay. So in terms of mixtapes, I mean,
Yeah, let's just say the mixtapes.
Okay. Oh gosh, I'm gonna make so many people mad, but it's always been Midnight Tangerine, not just because it was the one that was like not because it was the one that I, entered the Discord right after it happened, but I mean, there's something that like about tech that like the tech albums that combines like kind of that personal introspective stuff with like these very, sometimes it gets to like these very distorted elements, and it finds a really good balance between them. And like, I mean, there's also like the added element of text lyrics and the voice and stuff that like, there's other stuff to analyze in there, I guess, if that makes sense, that amplify it. I don't know if my explanation is really weird, but it's good. Okay.
No, I think that's becoming my favorite tech release also.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, yeah, like the songs. I mean, they're very like, I guess you'd say traditional. How am I trying to say it? Like, basically the songs play out and like are allowed to like kind of breathe a bit. And like it's less of the like rapid shifts that I guess some people don't like about Dark Life, how it kind of will go from section to section kind of rapidly, and you don't get to like sit with the part as long. I feel like something like Midnight Tangerine's kind of the opposite of that, where it's like you can just sit with the song a bit longer and like absorb it that way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's like, I think what I was like talking about in terms of like how he mixes like the more personal elements was like, because there are lyrics in it, there's also like a lot of like his own personal experience that's like a lot more kind of blatantly implemented in there, but it's so like well combined with metaphor and stuff that it's almost like kind of a heightened version, or like a more fantastical version of his experiences,
Yeah.
That whole thing.
Nathan asked, do you guys ever feel like you're in competition with each other for the mixtapes? And I mean, I think when you have like musical friends, there's 100% that like that kind of competition where someone will like drop something that's like really good, and you're just like, oh, like I've gotta, I have to like, I have to like do my best the next time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in my experience, like having that kind of relationship is like, it's very important to me, or like it just like that kind of motivation. It can get ugly like if you let it, but if you don't, it's extremely helpful in my opinion. And
Yeah.
like I feel like every musician needs to have at least one other person, even if it's someone they don't know closely, just like an artist where they kind of hear them and are like inspired to like keep upping their game essentially.
Yeah, as long as you don't let it delve into like too heavy, like like criticism of yourself and just your music inherently, then
Yeah.
it's good to be like, oh, this is good. I'm going to do my best. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like after Faith and Persona came out, I was like, and like it kind of like got attention outside the club. Like I literally was like, felt bad to like bring it up or even talk about it because I was worried that Tech or James might like have some resentment or something.
Resentment?
But you know, it's like, of course they didn't. Like, because it's like anything like that is just like it helps us all basically. But I'm just like so neurotic in that way that I worry about stuff like that sometimes.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. In terms of like what I was saying about like the how Midnight Tangerine was like a lot of going back to the whole implementing personal experiences but changing them in a fantastical way. I don't know. I don't want to like say this in a way that like makes you of course reveal anything that you don't want to reveal. So I'm gonna like try and word this correctly because some of your albums like in a very different way kind of achieve the I feel like a lot of the concepts in them achieve that sort of effect of like taking something that you've experienced in your personal life or like feelings that you've had, a lot of like stuff about identity and things like that that are very introspective and contemplative, and then turning them into this kind of fantastical atmosphere that I haven't really seen in other stuff, especially like Reality 2 or Faith and Persona create these own little worlds around like these experiences that you've had, and which one of those, like which one of your personal works, whether like Giant Claw or just your own personal mixtapes, do you feel was the most informed by like your own personal story, I guess?
I mean, I feel like there's a lot in like Faith and Persona. A lot of it came through in kind of the titles of the songs, and like, because you know a lot of times my music process is to just make the thing and like focus on the music, and then kind of when it's done I'll like sit there and like reflect on it, and just like more and more starts coming up, like, oh, like maybe this experience from a long time ago, like maybe this is reflected in this music abstractly in this way, or do you know what I mean? Like it's like the meaning in the music slowly starts to bubble up the more you reflect on it. And so I used to try to be more conscious of like what the theme or what the concept was behind an album or a song. But now more I just kind of trust that no matter what, like my experience is going to be in the music. Like I am who I am. Like it's going to be there no matter what.
Right.
Unless I'm like consciously trying to like, you know, make make something that avoids it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, music is like a part of, like sharing a part of our identity with the world, just like kind of inherently. It's a part of us that we're sharing with others, no matter whether we're like creating a fictional world from our imagination or like informing it from our personal experiences. It definitely, it all comes from our heart.
And you know, it's like music is its own language, which is it's like incredible that it's like just the complexity of what you can convey with music. And a lot of times people try to translate into like a direct artist statement or, you know, a direct like spoken feeling, but it's like the music is the language. Like the music itself is conveying these feelings in a different language, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't need to necessarily translate the musical language into like English. It's like it's often saying something that there is no direct translation for. If I don't know how best to explain it.
No, yeah, that makes sense, and I feel like music as a universal language has like helped just even to like broaden cultural understanding, because like even going as far back as like looking at something like the jazz age and how it like inspired like African American social movements, and how that like the music allowed them to like share their own feelings, and then other people kind of broaden their understanding because of that. And now we have things like, not only in terms of languages, things like J-pop and K-pop getting popular, but also like the LGBTQ plus representation in genres like hyperpop that are emerging into popularity. And there are so many people that are getting to kind of share their voices that like in such a way that like people are kind of like inherently, like you were saying, feel it in their like the inherent gut feeling more, like they have a way to empathize with them in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of times I feel like the music that people like most deeply respond to is often when like an artist can kind of like speak the musical language proficiently, or like basically is able to translate like their feelings into the language of music. I do feel like some people are like more adept at that than others, basically.
Right.
I don't know where I was going with that, but
No, yeah, I mean, as I was saying, there are different like levels of how much it's like informed by your own personal experience, but it is like as long as you're not one of those people that is just doing it for money or for fame, I still do believe that it comes from your heart in some way.
it's funny because now with like DDS, I literally am doing it for money.
Well,
So
yeah, in a way.
but like I'm just waiting for the point. Like it hasn't happened yet, but I'm like wondering if it will get to the point where it's like tainted, like it taints basically my experience in making music. Because like before I was doing the DDS stuff, DDS mixtape club thing for money, I was doing visual art commissions.
Yeah.
And like that experience of like making a living from that like kind of made me not want to open Photoshop ever again. Like it definitely soured my like enjoyment of making visual art for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just know in terms of like the New World Mixtape Club stuff that, as I've said before, we will literally eat up everything you create, no matter what it is. So like whatever you feel like represents what you want to do most in that moment, we will follow you along that journey no matter what. We will stand by DDS till death do us part.
Is there like a style of mixtape that you personally would like to hear the most?
Honestly, I'm just like, I'm along for the ride with anything, and as I've said before, I'm open to learning about all sorts of new kinds of stuff. So like I'm fine with whatever.
You're good. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna try to tailor something to what you said, but
Oh no. So just in since we are coming up on like an hour and a half here, well, if there's anybody else who thinks of any other questions they want to ask, I do want to ask you a little final question of my own, and it's just like, I don't know, what do you, is there any like motivational, like what stuff that you would have to say for like artists who are like aspiring artists who are struggling to find their own musical identity and who are just starting out, and you know they're if they're losing hope in what they're doing?
First of all, are you asking this about because you feel like that, or is this just a more general?
Well, it's a little bit as I said, like, also I'm still trying to figure out where the heck I fit in, but there are some other people who, like, especially when I talk to people in the DDS Discord, like, who are able to, like, connect with each other in such a personal way. I've heard a lot of other people say that they feel like they're still, trying to find their place in music too, so.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because I feel like I've like been so drawn to art, like in general, music and visuals, like since, for as long as I can remember. And for me, it was never really a question of like if I would make art. Like, in my early 20s, I had like a crappy job, like a few of them, and I was at that point like pretty resigned to living a life that was like, all right, I'm gonna work this job. At the job, I'm gonna like daydream about the music I want to make or the art I want to make, and then I'll like make it when I get home, and like that will be fine. Like if I can just make enough to live and then be able to make art, I'll be fine. And I feel like, yeah, so I guess it comes for like people wanting to make music or art. It's kind of like you have to like look into yourself and kind of ask like is this something that I'm going to be doing regardless, like whether it's my job or not? And if the answer is no, then it's like you probably need to like search, keep searching, or like find something that excites you in that way, I guess. Is that too brutal of an answer?
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, I can like relate with you on the thing where I was saying the same thing about like, since I've been fascinated with all kinds of art my whole life and knew that I was going to end up in, one of them one way or another, and I've done like creative writing and like visual art, graphic design stuff, and I ended up in music. It's always been like I just want to make art, like no matter whether it makes me money or what kind of lifestyle I have or whether it's my job. I just want that to be a part of my life because I enjoy it, and it's like an integral part of how I express myself. So yeah,
and for you, Scarlett, for you personally, I'll say that like when you started posting on the DDS Discord, like pretty quickly, like within a few weeks, I kind of recognized that like you seemed like a person who like had that like inner kind of passion and drive just like to make art and music and stuff.
Aww.
And so it's like I don't think you have to worry. Like I think you'll like, as long as you keep feeling it that way, it's like you'll be fine in that regard, I think.
I will do my best. Gambarimasu. I did the weeb thing again. Darn it, I'm in VTuber mode again. Alright. So, okay, let me just look at the chat room. In real sense, Scarlett got the DDS cosign so fast, that's how you know she's good. Aww, you all are so sweet. I love every one of you, not even in the, not only just like in the mixtape club, but all the people in the chat. I just know that you are loved and you are valued, and I hope that you all find your purpose and your identity as well. So, with that...
Yeah, I'm sorry that I'm so bad at like looking at the chat while talking. Like it's
that's my job. You don't have to do that.
My streaming weakness, but yeah, I appreciate everybody there.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. It was definitely, and I'm every time I say an honor now, I think of it as a DDS pun. This time it is not. It is an honor to meet you.
Absolutely.
In terms of voice chat, I mean, I've met you virtually in a different way before, but now it's kind of we all learned a lot more about Keith Rankin today. So thank you so much for sharing those parts of yourself with us.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Have all of you out there. Have a wonderful day. We really hope you enjoyed the stream. Bye.
Bye bye.